You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first out of 93 WIBC. We begin this evening with some pretty key breaking news out of the U.S. Court of Appeals. You say, which number? No. The U.S. Court of Appeals at the Federal Circuit has ruled that President Donald Trump's global tariffs are illegal. And they made this ruling 30 minutes after futures closed on the market today. Of course, as all of you are aware who have calendars, this ruling comes out ahead of Labor Day weekend. Markets are going to be closed for the next 3 days. Now, what exactly did they write in the order? So first of all, there's a lot of misinformation that is going around because there are big grifter engagement farming accounts who want to tell you all of these various things and a bunch of them just aren't true. So first of all, the tariffs themselves are allowed to stay into effect, at least as far as we're reading in this, until October 14th. Now, obviously, and as we'll get to the statement here in a second, President Trump is going to make sure this is appealed before the Supreme Court. So the ruling judge, in this case, the chief judge, would be Moore. That's a Bush appointee, I believe, back in '06. So now we get to one particular point in Section 6 of the order. We affirm essentially the lawsuits holding that the trafficking and reciprocal tariffs imposed by the challenged executive orders exceed the authority delegated to the president by the IEEPA's text. We also affirm the CIT's grant of declaratory relief that the orders are, quote, invalid as contrary to law. VOS Selection 772. So what does this mean? This means that the Court of Appeals has not found Trump's argument that the current trade situation on an international level constitutes the national emergency that allows a president of the United States or the executive branch in general to levy across the board sweeping tariffs at the rate and manner in which the executive branch under the second Trump administration has done. This will go before the Supreme Court. Now, the President of the United States, again, these tariffs are allowed to remain in effect until October 14th, unless the appeals process above the Court of Appeals takes place, which it is going to. So President Trump posted on Truth Social, again, right before the show began, quote, all tariffs are still in effect. He typed that in all capital letters, which that is true. He said, today, a highly partisan appeals court incorrectly said that our tariffs should be removed, but they know the United States of America will win in the end. If these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. It would make us financially weak, and we have to be strong. The USA will no longer tolerate enormous trade deficits and unfair tariffs and non-tariff trade barriers imposed by other countries, friend or foe, that undermine our manufacturers, farmers, and everyone else. If allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy the United States of America. You can tell Trump is exceptionally perturbed by this. At the start of this Labor Day weekend, we should all remember that, he puts in all capital letters, tariffs are the best tool to help our workers and support our countries that produce great, in all caps, made in America products. For many years, tariffs were allowed to be used against us by our uncaring and unwise politicians. Now, with the help of the United States Supreme Court, we will use them to the benefit of our nation and then he just capitalizes the first letter of each of these words, make America rich, strong, and powerful again. And then in classic second administration Trump fashion, thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, there are a couple of things that are very true in this particular statement that Trump made. There are a couple of things that the court is asserting that is true. And then there are a couple of things that both are asserting are outside of the purview of presidential authority or outside the purview of the court's authority. So first of all, I'm not going to pretend that every single sentence in the initial Trump response is as though someone was delivering a major prepared response, because Trump immediately took to his phone. Obviously, these tariffs, if canceled, are not going to destroy the United States of America. Now, here's where things get really, really tricky. It all comes to the words national emergency. I freaking hate any laws which allow an executive, no matter who it is at any time, to decide when something constitutes a national emergency. It is the Achilles heel of a republic. I will say that again. In every other republic throughout history that has fallen, every single one included a measure in which the elected representative, chief of the executive or chief of the legislative or a triumvirate or a council or whatever you want to call it, as soon as they are allowed to decide when certain parts of the law or certain duties of the legislature can be abdicated, abandoned, set aside to declare a national emergency, everything goes belly up. Because then a national emergency gets called. And strangely, national emergencies never, ever, ever seem to end, no matter who it is. None of this has anything to do, by the way, with Trump yet in this explanation. None of them. So what does this mean for President Trump? Well, the problem is that because the law is rather ambiguous on what constitutes a national emergency for the president to invoke tariffs as a measure, yes, you could make the case that China and Russia are, in fact, targets of a more intensive tariff negotiation strategy that must be able to turn on a dime because Congress moves slower than molasses in January in Juneau. And besides that, there's so much pearl clutching and camera posturing, there really isn't a place for negotiations to occur. You say, Tony, what are you talking about? Remember when Zelensky came to the White House the first time and the media started asking questions and the entire thing turned into a flaming ball of crap? When negotiations are carried out in front of the American people, which is not how this country was set up, by the way, you start having your wonder brilliant uber politicians, by which I mean people on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, who immediately decide from the far left and the far right that they are brilliant economists and foreign policy leaders and all this other nonsense. And what ends up happening is a massive derailment. It is, in fact, within the President of the United States authority, given the current methodologies given to him by Congress, to enact tariffs as a method of diplomatic, military, and economic leverage. You say, Tony, what's your source for that? Legal precedent, mostly, is that other presidents have been allowed to do so. But Congress has given those individuals when I mean the president and then members of the executive branch, like the Commerce Secretary or the vice president in international speaking terms, diplomatic efforts. So like when the vice president is sent to Panama, for instance, the vice president could suggest, well, maybe there will be some tariffs in your future. That's what I mean by the precedent that allows the VP. So what does this mean going forward? Is the economy going to just collapse under its own weight after we get back from Labor Day? No, the tariffs are still in effect. You might see even a slight boost towards futures because there are some Wall Street companies that don't care for the tariffs. You will see Russia emboldened out of this. Russia and China will be emboldened out of this because they don't play by those rules. That will be a problem. We'll get to that in a minute, which is going to be very important given what is breaking out of Japan. Or should I say breaking into Japan? Shout out to gunboat diplomacy. Little historical reference for you there. Now, is it a surefire thing that the Supreme Court of the United States is going to rule in Trump's favor here? No. John Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, you could make the argument that Alito and Scalia as well are probably not going to go for Trump's unilateral tariff agreement here, but to make a kind of down the line, very fine cut through what Trump can and can't do, that would be a very serious opinion to write in the best of times with all of the time in the world. And I just don't see this being solved very quickly. This was always, now, again, I have not told you the moral imperative as to whether or not tariffs are good or bad. We've had on E.J. Antony, who is, of course, now being brought forward to the Trump administration to assist in the economics and also labor statistics, things like that. So I'm not going to speculate as best as, from my little Hoosier perch here, what I see coming out of this, other than here is yet another court who has just decided based on, again, rather blasé and vague interpretations that, well, Trump is acting outside of his authority, so therefore I say no. We're going to let the radio crew head to commercial, dive into some mortgage fraud and Japanese stuff on the way back. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right. Over on the live stream, there is other breaking news occurring. Missiles in Japan. So right now, the United States Army and the United States Marines are deploying the Typhoon missile interception and defense systems to Japan for the very first time in our nation's history, in this case, for September drills. So the U.S. Army is deploying, it's a mid-range missile system, a Marine Corps-led exercise with Japan in September. It's the third multi-domain task force, positioning the land-based ground-launched missile system at the Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni, about 25 miles southeast of Hiroshima, for what's called the annual Resolute Dragon exercise. And this is the real catch. It's the U.S. Army Pacific Command that is essentially, quote, providing a complementary capability to existing U.S. and Japanese systems, underscoring our commitment to innovation, modernization, and the U.S.-Japan alliance. This is according to Colonel Isaac Taylor of the U.S. Army Pacific Command. He says, quote, this exercise highlights the importance of interoperability, and our shared dedication to peace, security, and a free and open Indo-Pacific. The timing on this is incredible. And it has Moscow and Beijing very, 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 very angry. Now, I was actually going to play a clip of the foreign ministry spokesman, Guo Jiakun, talking about this today from Beijing. And I was going to make a little bit of a joke about how he was going to start speaking in Mandarin and then I don't speak Mandarin. But the provider of this video actually translates it into English for you. So here's Beijing's response.
Global Times. It's reported that during the joint drills in Japan in September, the U.S. military plans to deploy the Typhoon medium-range missile system in Japan and conducted relevant exercises. The system will be removed after drills, was China's comment.
That's the reporter's question. Here is the foreign affair of Beijing.
We noted relevant reports. China has repeatedly expressed grave concerns on relevant issues. China always opposes the U.S. deploying the Typhoon mid-range capability missile system in Asian countries. The deployment of the system in Japan will further undermine the legitimate security interests of other countries and pose a substantive threat to regional strategic security.
All right, so essentially, Beijing is complaining loudly that the United States is poking and prodding and basically acting very confrontational in the Pacific. And I got to be honest with you, LOL, that China, whose entire operation in the Pacific includes moving its boats off of these 2-foot by 2-foot little tiny mounds that are only above water, like 3 or 4 hours a day, and sticking a flag in it and saying, okay, this is now island of China. Therefore, new coastline, 3 mile out, no ship come here. And every other country on earth is like, no, that's not how that works, producer Nick.
Well, when they aren't, traveling from island to island, they're ramming each other, like we saw around August 12th, where 2 Chinese ships attempted to shove a Philippine ship over, but instead
crashed into each other. Yeah, good old Chinese naval superiority. Russia's also very upset. According to Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, she says Russia considers the deployment of the Typhoon ground-based missile system at a U.S. base in Japan as another destabilizing step by Washington. Ooh. Here's why this is happening. Trump's getting really sick and tired of Beijing and Moscow trying to run out the clock. So what Trump is up to right now is saying, fine, well then we'll be a little more like Teddy Roosevelt and we'll park our boats off the coast of Venezuela and we'll park our boats wherever we want to in the Pacific and we'll park our missiles wherever we want because your economies are floundering and you need us to live either by primary or by secondary. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Don't go anywhere. This will take a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Do you like that little Friday bumper? Yeah, I made that one this afternoon just for you guys. So on the home front side of things, remember how Trump was stepping outside of his presidential authority, and even some commentators whom I greatly respect over on the right side of the aisle were making little grumbling, let's say nervous noises, that Trump was digging up or ordering people to dig up old mortgage documents on people to try to catch them in like some improper whatevers to get people that he didn't want in power. Well, now Lisa Cook, the member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, who Trump essentially said, hey, you've been caught in some mortgage fraud. You have the opportunity to resign. And Lisa Cook said, no. And so Trump said, okay, then you're fired. And now it appears that not only has Lisa Cook likely committed, according to CNN, one case of mortgage fraud in which she listed on one form a primary address, a couple of weeks later, a totally different form, a different primary address to secure a lower mortgage rate. Now it appears, according to yet another referral to the Department of Justice, that she committed mortgage fraud by lying on a third property. House regulator Bill Polt sent a second criminal referral on the embattled Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook after she was caught lying about, this time, a third property. According to Polt, Cook misrepresented a condominium in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which she claimed was a second home. Just 8 months later, though, Cook signed an ethics form with the U.S. government and represented the Cambridge property as an investment and rental property. Hi, here's what you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to claim that your third property you own is actually your second property. And then if you claim it as a secondary residence in order to gain a lower mortgage rate, you're not allowed to then turn around and use it primarily as a rental property. Because then, just so in case you're concerned about this, both in Massachusetts and federal state taxes, if you have an investment or a rental property and you list a total number of losses, little thought exercise here. Hey, Allison, you out there on the WIBC board?
Hello.
Hey, you ever stayed in an Airbnb?
Oh yeah, tons of times.
Sure. So you stay at the Airbnb, you're out there having a really good time, a good hoot. And have you ever caused like $3,000 worth of damage to the Airbnb?
No, I think I would remember that one.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of Airbnbs who are terrified people are going to do that. So they make you pay those outrageous fees. You know what I'm talking about? The cleaning fee and the prep for cleaning fee and the making the bed fee and the second lemon pledge.
Fee.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the fee and the transaction processing fee. So it's caused a lot of people not to spend time at Airbnbs. So what you guys may not know is that you can list, if people aren't staying at your Airbnb, in some states, you can say, a lot of people haven't stayed here, therefore I have lost money on the property this year. So if Lisa Cook was simultaneously listing a place, her third residence, as her second residence, so she gets lower mortgage rates on a residential property, then turns around and reports it in state and federal taxes later as an investment property, she then gets to claim essentially business loss on a residential property. So to tell you guys why this is a bit of a problem, on a much lower scale, we have a new studio here that we're doing the show out of that we built over the last calendar year. And, it's no longer attached to my physical home. It has a separate power line. And one of the reasons that it has separate power. It has separate power hookup. That's so I can list the power side as a business expense so that you don't have to do all the fancy math. You can't just list your entire residential power bill as, oh, I was using that for work. The IRS doesn't like that. Now, the funny thing about Lisa Cook's case right here is that it was so blatant. Mortgage fraud is not something you can just kind of accidentally do and they guess your motive. Mortgage fraud is like right out in the open. Right. I mean, the paper trail for mortgage fraud is, again, the box says primary residence, and then you have to list it. There's no other way to take the word primary. Producer Nick?
Are you telling me I shouldn't have been renting this out as an Airbnb?
Yeah, I mean, if you ever start renting this place out as an Airbnb, well, it is a commercial. We might be onto something there. Maybe we ought to, if you want to use the Tony Kinnett Cast Studio for your next local get-together, we only charge 15 times the local community center rate. And we also make you use our local caterer. And also, you have to take the cats out for a walk. I not because they need it. I just think that'd be funny. So, all right, that brings us to the Democrat strategy not in Washington, D.C., where they are complaining that the National Guard is now mulching, which is really funny. All of the complaints now from people in Washington, D.C. complaining that National Guardsmen are taking out the trash, are sweeping, and are fixing some streets, mulching, and some landscaping. I will remind those of you who have ever been to Fort Benning in good old Georgia that there is a pile of dirt next to Sand Hill that moves once per red phase of basic training because there is some stupid kid who upsets a sergeant and then has to, with his hand, or if he's really unlucky, with a spoon, move that pile of dirt from one place to the next. Mulching for guardsmen or for reserves or regular army, that's what a lot of individuals might call a weekend. So when they're not complaining about that, Gavin Newsom is now just going around to saying that the ICE is just going to do the Anschluss. So as a reminder, during the lead up to World War II, that Hitler sent in the SS to Austria, who likely would have voted in favor of the Anschluss anyway. It's one of the great historical debates of all time, to join Germany. But Hitler wanted to make super duper sure. So he sent in the SS to the polling places and swapped out the ballots. So there's a big circle in the center that says, yeah, I want to be a Nazi. And then in the bottom right-hand corner is, no, I would like to be taken out back and beaten. And that's kind of the sending in the SS. So Gavin Newsom has decided the strategy right now is to suggest Trump is going to send ICE to watch polling places in the next election, which, by the way, he just got done saying there wasn't going to be an election in 2028. But Gavin Newsom, ladies and gentlemen.
In LA, do you think ICE is not going to show up around voting and polling booths to chill participation? You know that. The National Guard, you know that. Everybody knows what's at stake, so we have to put a stake in the ground and do things differently.
He was defending redistricting with this. Now, wait a minute. If Trump is sending in ICE, what does that have to do with redistricting and gerrymandering? What on earth does that have to do with anything whatsoever? I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure he's quite sure. Again, it changes from day to day. That is when he's not getting royally slapped by Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. Again, Gavin Newsom went off, as we showed yesterday, suggesting that Louisiana and Mississippi are super duper ultra dangerous states, and that these red states are actually the places with really terrible leadership. And then Mike Johnson went out in front of the country and reminded Gavin Newsom, hey, those large blue cities in smaller population red states, yeah, those are Democrat mayors and prosecutors and county officials. So Newsom's been a little bit quieter since then. J.B. Pritzker has decided to take a moment from stuffing hot dogs down his gullet to brag about something we all know is really good in Illinois. When you think of Chicago, tell me what you think of. Do you think of really good hot dogs? You'd be correct. Portillo's, God bless it. Do you think of really good baseball? If you're the Pope, maybe. You know, a little holy blessing for the White Sox there. You might think of the bean. If you have severe mental issues, whatever. But you don't probably think of education as being the thing Chicago's got going for it. Radio crew, we got to send you over to the commercial. We're going to talk about J.B. Pritzker's weird bragging over here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Get a load of this one, guys.
Hi, I'm here at Wagner Elementary. I just got to meet with a group of kindergartners and second graders, and they are really smart kids, and it was great to spend time with them. They get to learn every day about these classroom rules, and they follow them. And I have to say,
I'm sorry, elementary teachers out there. Again, I taught middle school, and I then was a high school teacher and an administrator. So, but by the end of my time, I enjoyed hearing from elementary teachers du jour. My wife taught elementary her last couple of years in the classroom the same way. Kids don't listen to these rules, especially in today's day and age. Get out of here. But anyway, moral lecture from the obese Mr. Rogers.
there are a few in here I think the leaders in Washington ought to learn, like, for example, listen carefully, maybe treat each other with respect, and of course, make good decisions. I wish more leaders in Washington would do that.
The irony of the Illinois governor telling people to make good decisions and treat each other with respect. The state that its people believe is the most corrupt state in the entire country. Incredible. By the way, I can't help, point this out. In 30 Illinois schools, not a single student in the district can read at grade level. Oh, nothing on that? What a shame. Now, this brings us over to some of the media malpractice because, really, when you're talking about Democrat strategy, which is having a real precious time, you can't stop at just discussing the officials in office. The media has had not a field day with the awful tragedy in Minneapolis at the Ascension Catholic School and Church shooting. Previously, they've had a field day. You can see the glee in previous shootings on certain anchors' faces as they talk about things. These were micro scandals in and of themselves. This time it's been a little bit worse. They've had to play defense because the legacy media ecosystem is crumbling. The ratings are collapsing. A lot of the outlets have either shut down or canceled shows or had to replace anchors and co-anchors and guests. And so now they're essentially trying to fight their own battles on their own turf. The narrative is wildly spread out. Well, this hasn't stopped the narratives from getting a little bit worse, even so, since, of course, the transgender shooter, which the more we find out from this individual's manifesto, a very, very mentally unhealthy individual suffering from transgenderism, gender dysphoria, who was targeting Catholics. The concern of CNN's Andrew McCabe, well,
for the mother to not even return to the state to answer law enforcement questions, to try to provide some assistance. I'm sure she's grieving for her daughter, but
he's talking about the shooter, by the way, the mother of the shooter who signed off on the shooter's name change because she had stated on the form that changed genders. Her daughter, the desperation to cover for the gender change of this individual is unreal.
This is, it's a really perverse and strange element of this story. It's inexplicable to me at this point.
So one of the things he's discussing is that the mother has now hired a criminal defense attorney. Now, I am going to make this clear. I do believe that if there is a minor who commits a crime like this, the parents should be held accountable. I do. I believe that your children are your legal responsibility as well as your social and economic responsibility. That said, I think that as a moral culpability level, when you sign off on the affirmation of a decision like that, again, consequences do in fact follow. We'll be back in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
There are a host of polls coming out right now that matter because we're at the end of August. August is supposed to be the most boring month in politics. And of all of the 4 years of a presidential term, the most boring year is supposed to be the very first year of the administration. Because August is right at the very beginning of the congressional campaign for the midterms. Again, every congressional campaign is about 14 months long. That's when some of the last decisions are made. You say, Tony, how do you know this? Well, Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa has just announced she's not seeking re-election. The very last of those, unless it's a major emergency and it's very out of season, comes right now. It's supposed to be the sleepiest month of the year, and it's just not. And the reason that it's not is because this is when the opposition is supposed to gain enough traction that it is essentially equal with the last of the momentum from the administration in power. And that's not happening right now. You can say, well, maybe the Trump administration's momentum has diminished slightly. Again, the way that the Trump team is handling the crime situation right now and the illegal immigration situation, no. But the other reason that they are flunking as hard as they are, and I want to make that clear, the Democrats are now in a position where not only are they at record lows in approval rating, they have never been in a position like this, ever, in which they have had approval ratings, but depending on the poll you're looking at, hovering between 15 and 20% in the country for the approval rating for the Democrat Party. Right now, according to a new Gallup poll, Never seen anything like this. Neither have they. I'm sure that in Harry Enton from CNN's next big roundup, this will be near the top of what he's discussing. The Democrat Party is currently in a poll titled Americans' Satisfaction with the Way Things Are Going in the United States at this time. And really one of the highest highs for Republicans since 2005, where it was in the 80s. Right now, it is 76% of Republicans believe that the country is heading in a positive direction. They're satisfied with the way things are moving. Right now, for the very first time in polling history that Gallup has run this poll at the beginning of the century, Democrats, 0% of the entire party believe the U.S. is heading in a positive direction. Why is that newsworthy? Just a year ago to the day, what was the one word that was echoed through every single ad for Kamala Harris, every news cycle, every analysis or pundit segment on TV, every campaign event? 3 letters: joy. Joy cometh in the morning. That was Kamala Harris' thing. That was joyful. It's such a joyful campaign, so much joy. They're trying to steal our joy. And in such a short amount of time, it has gone from overwhelming euphoria to the lowest ashes one can have. And the reason it's a 0% like this, the reason is there's nothing on the bench. There's nothing for the future of the party. There's nothing. And that comes all the way down to groups that continue to be driven off by the left. Most recently, black voters. So again, during the last election cycle, it was Hispanic voters that started abandoning the left just in droves because they were treated like props. They were called Latinx. Now, in a desperate attempt to cling to trans whatever, in the Virginia gubernatorial election, which was a hallmark of a major cultural shift the last time, Terry McAuliffe versus Glenn Youngkin, well, now we're in a situation where things are really going from bad to worse.
Well, the trans community, as it may be, is not only content with lashing out in general. There appears to be a targeted effort at lashing out in the most vociferous way possible to any other community that they perceive might be more important than they are, perhaps. The latest example, of course, being Winsome Sears in Virginia. Tyler O'Neill from the Daily Signal is joining us. He's been covering a lot of this. Nothing says open welcome acceptance like throwing out trans black people don't use my bathroom kind of signs, you know?
Yeah, I mean, egregious in the extreme.
And so now things have gotten so out of control. The transish whatever community, based on some of the posts, based on the posters, the angry, overeducated, white, old college liberal ladies have now gotten so mad that they have actually gotten the head of BET, Black Entertainment Television, to weigh in on the side of the Republican candidate?
Yeah, that's right. So the head of BET is dedicating $500,000 to the campaign of Winsome Earl Sears, who is, as you said, the Republican nominee in the Virginia governor's race. And this is all because that one protester held up a sign saying, if trans can't use my bathroom, then blacks can't use my water fountain. This too, so this is just following. And by the way, Abigail Spanberger, to her credit, condemned the sign. Of course, she waited a little while, but, she condemned it.
Right, but like a lot of the posts on Blue Sky didn't, though.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and the thing that stuck out to me when I was talking to Winsome earlier this week, she said that crowd was there. There was a protest for over an hour. That sign was up for over an hour, and nobody in that crowd came over to that protester and said, hey, you should take this down. Nobody made a peep. So that whole protest crowd is implicated in this message. This against, Winsome Sears would not just be the first black governor of Virginia, which is saying something because, capital of the Confederacy and everything, but she would also be the first black governor, first black female governor in the entirety of the United States. she would be the first one. I went through the list of all the female governors. Not a single one of them was black. So if the Democrats really believed their intersectional messaging here, they would have a real hard time opposing Winsome Sears. And yet, trans is the issue that they can use to compare, the first, who might be the first black woman governor of Virginia, to segregationists. I mean, this is beyond the pale, but this is the modern Democratic Party.
So we're going to step it up again. So this is where it gets even better. So then the Mark Broklowski, whatever, the second vice chair of rules in the Virginia Democrat Party, which sounds like a position that makes me want to slash my wrists, is complaining that Winsome Sears used the term elite cabal. And so they have therefore decided to say, that's anti-Semitism to suggest there's an elitist cabal somewhere. I mean, I've heard of grasping at straws. This is something else entirely.
Oh, yeah. And what makes it better, the icing on the cake is, and when I asked Winsome about this, she told me that the person who drafted that tweet, not every tweet is directly from the fingers of Winsome Sears.
You're telling me this for the first time. Go ahead.
Yeah. The person who drafted that tweet is herself an Orthodox Jew.
Of course.
So the idea, right? I mean, the idea that this is anti-Semitic, this at the same time as the Democrats are attacking Winsome Sears for failing to disclose a trip to Israel that she took with the Combat Anti-Semitism movement. If you want to name somebody who is actually name someone I'm less likely to believe is anti-Semitic than Winsome Sears, it's kind of hard to find.
I'm just asking one person on that side of the aisle to think through some of the insults that they're throwing around before they make them. And it just cannot be done. Tyler O'Neill over at the Daily Signal, thanks for stopping by for a quick minute to give us an update on this. Truly one of the craziest weeks in politics, especially in Virginia. I thought we weren't going to relive the Terry McAuliffe, Glenn Youngkin situation, and here we freaking are.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the calendar thinking that it's definitely got to be 2021 at this point because we have a scandal in Loudoun County. It's like, yeah.
But that's true. Yeah, there's a scandal in Loudoun County. There's school board officials breaking the law. Man, I tell you what, Virginia just goes through the same 4-year period of history constantly. Well, thanks again for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, of course, I spoke too soon. Remember when I suggested that this is the beginning of the 14-month campaign period? We now know that Senator Lisa Murkowski, the Republican senator of Alaska, who gives a lot of people severe indigestion, this is the person who was shoehorned into saying that she would, consider maybe being a Democrat. Now she did push back on that reporter, but she's been a very wishy-washy senator. She is now in a position to be challenged in the Alaskan Senate primary by Alaska's current Republican governor, Mike Dunleavy, in 2028. So for Senate, a little bit longer of a campaign cycle, but announcing these things ahead of time does tend to happen at this time of year. August into September. A lot of big announcements get made. Now, moving forward, at least as far as we're able to see, we're going to have to move forward on the live stream. Radio crew, we're going to send you over to commercial. Otherwise, the FCC is going to kick me in the teeth. We'll see you guys in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. I tell you what, we get so much momentum rolling in the commercial nod-offs for them. I'm glad we have the live stream crew. Really are thankful for you guys, by the way. If you are enjoying the show, consider throwing a like on the video. It helps us out, helps us gain momentum and keep on going. To show you extremely important things, like Rosie O'Donnell, who has decided to do at least half a bag of meth in suggesting that the transgender shooter in Minneapolis, just here she is.
So about the Minnesota shooting, and it brought me right back to Columbine in 1999 when I just could not get it through my head that students in America were shooting each other in schools. And this was a church inside a Catholic school. And what do you know, was a white guy, Republican.
No.
MAGA person.
No. I'm not sure how you can be a MAGA person with, quote, kill Trump, end quote, on the gun itself. I'm not sure what's MAGA about that. Also, not a Republican at all. Despite, again, there's an argument that there was one Republican for Congress that the individual mentioned once, but that was because the individual was some kind of like gun YouTuber, and I think was doing so ironically. Like they were laying bullets on like a weird tablecloth or something. What's the story on that, producer Nick?
So having actually watched all the videos and seeing what all these reporters are misreporting on, the individual quoted some channel like catchphrases from two gun tubers, which is the condensed form of gun YouTubers. They then both of them, it seemed, had a response basically surmising as go F yourself to the shooter.
Gotcha. Okay. So unhinged from Rosie O'Donnell, not unexpected.
What do you know? White supremacist.
A white supremacist. Well, he says that in his insane writings that he wasn't willing to die for what he called people of color, but he was more focused on, again, taking revenge on Catholics because he thought that they were an easier target. This would, again, be one of the first times ever that a white supremacist has targeted a Catholic school, I think. The very weird, very, very weird. But again, that's Rosie O'Donnell. So, that kind of stuff in and of itself all put together. That brings us over to one final little point on this that I do want to make before we head over to kind of the commercial land. There are different ways this is being described on MSNBC and CNN and the Associated Press and USA Today and New York Times and the Los Angeles Times, all the way through those. They're not carrying through the same message, and it is causing some friction between analysts who are going to different platforms to do their little network media hits. Voters are not buying into this. Its longevity is not good at all. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. Let's get into just a smidgen of crazy here at the end of the broadcast side of the show. So I've told you before that there's no comm strategy, there's no unifying message, and it's caused a lot of depression on the Democrat side of things. Now, there is a rumor of an Economist poll that I haven't seen yet, but it has been put out that maybe it's an embargoed poll that was released early. According to a poll attributed to The Economist, 36% of independent voters are, help me out with this, is it 36% are saying they're not going to, or only 36% of independents?
39% of independents reportedly do not plan on voting in the midterm 2026.
Understand. Okay, so according to this poll, again, grain of salt because I haven't seen the actual data yet, but I thought I'd throw it in here. 39% of independents are currently suggesting they do not plan on voting in the 2026 midterms. That is a crisis point for the opposition party. A crisis point. You're supposed to have independents revved up and ready to go, all in favor of you. If you have like a high turnout in a midterm, it's a very bad sign for the party in power. Low turnout favors the opposition. And of course, recent Republican registries are twice as likely, by the last 10 years of data, to come out and vote in off-year elections than recent registries for the Democrats, of which there are none. So, those things said, I can tell you why. I've got the inside scoop. The inside track as to why currently 0% of Democrats are optimistic about the country, why right now there is such severe depression in this party and they all hate each other. The reason is because the Democrats won't stop singing. They won't stop singing. Remember the whole Karen that they put in charge of Cracker Barrel, or the Karen they put at the VP of marketing, or the Karen that they put in charge of Jaguar in Europe? The same kind of Karens. Well, they also decide what the protests are for the DNC. And I know I've showed you guys so many of these, you're going to think that I am reusing that. From today, yet another Democrat protest choral group has formed. I told you, this is the new wave. It's the opposite of a social media trend, though. It's just a disease. And I have to share it with you because, by God, if we're going to go into Labor Day, you deserve, those who are not in this crazy crew, to go out on a high note. Here's from today, the latest singing sensation at the top of the charts. I'm Casey Case. Here you go.
Took back what he stole from us. Took it back, took back
our dignity.
Took it back.
Took back our humanity.
Well, we
went down to the rich man's house and we took back what he stole from us.
Took it back.
Took back our dignity.
Sing, y'all. Took it back.
Took back our humanity.
And now
I love it. I love it. More. And it looks like we might be getting more. We really might, because according to this according to Dave Weigel, who covers politics over for Semaphore, there is a new Democrat fight song they unveiled this summer, like on the PowerPoints at the DNC meeting. Dems fight song. It goes DEMS, we rise. Stronger together, blue skies. Lift your voice, we're bold and true. Onward, Democrats, we shine blue. Huh, yay. I mean, oh yeah. That was so brave. Amazing, incredible. I love it. So yes, the fight songs are here, guys. They've got it. They have been wondering how to counter the Joe Rogan strategy, the podcaster age. You know, they've been wondering why, by the way, yesterday we shared all of those left-wing influencers and show hosts who are really upset after it was exposed. They were taking $8,000 a month. $8,000 a month from this shady organization to keep their shows going because they weren't getting enough crowdfunding or something like that. And so, you know, while shows like this, which passed them in the ratings and continue to do so, we don't have to take that. I can see that the valuable response to this would be to get out more choral groups. I remind you that earlier this week we had the straight from the stripper supply clothing company, the pink vested heroes singing This Little Light of Mine, but it's about the MS-13 wife beater, Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump. No! Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump.
Yeah, all right. I'm so here for this every day. And then, of course, who can forget the greatest classic of all classics? Which side are you on?
Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on?
Is that Howard Stern over on the left?
Which side are you on? We'll fight against George. We'll fight Elon Musk. No Elon's kept within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk. Oh, which side are you on?
I love it. I love it. It's great. It's great. So if they don't have that, what are the youths doing? So that's what the older crew, you know, your Generation X and boomers on the left are doing. What about the youths? The youths of the Democrat Party, because they're out here too. They're out here having a time, saying things that I would not recommend they say, because they're really focused on they're also focused on the transgender shooting in Minneapolis. Here you go. Wrong generation. Let's try that again.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on the Minnesota shooting. First of all, 99% of the time, the perpetrators of these heinous acts of violence are white. So let's just ruminate
whites. Okay.
On that for a minute. Second of all, conservative, cisgender,
cisgender. Again, it's always the same glasses, the weird peace necklace choker, and then, you know, of course, her father's flannel, the last thing that she has to remember him by. So, you know, hey, you know what they say? If you can't have your father's respect, at least try to get your hands on his flannel. So, I mean, just excellent stuff. No. Let's have her continue here.
Rate homophobic, transphobic people before you go and say, oh, trans people are crazy. They're committing all of these acts of violence. They're committing all of these crimes. Understand that you still fulfill a role in that.
Understand that you self-fulfill a role in that. Meaning, when you say transgender people are violent, you are encouraging them to be violent, which is, if it's don't provoke them, you're going to provoke them. Incredible. Now we'll continue this clip over on the live stream, Daily Signal, over on YouTube, youtube.com/Daily Signal. Radio crew, we're going to have to see you guys on the other side of Labor Day. So we'll continue over there. Thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to continue on the live stream. You guys have a great weekend on the audio side. All right, let's hear more of the brilliant witticisms of the youths on the left.
Understand that if a trans person is to commit an act of violence such as this, maybe there were mental health issues underlying that. No. The dude who thought he was a woman might have mental health issues underlying. This is brand new information. Chris Streeter, and then also Elmore as well. Thank you very much for the super chats and the very, very kind words. Some impression requests. We might get to that over in mail time. I want to finish this lady's very bold words, though. If you all had just allowed them to express themselves the way they identify, we could have prevented the violent act from occurring in the first place. Just something to fucking consider.
I'm going to let her finish that again, language or no language.
Yeah, people are crazy. They're committing all of these acts of violence. They're committing all of these crimes. Understand that you still fulfill a role in that. Understand that if a trans person is to commit an act of violence such as this, maybe there were mental health issues underlying that if you all had just allowed them to express themselves the way they identify, we could have prevented the violent act from occurring in the first place.
Oh man, I mean, if you guys would just let them be mentally ill and affirm them more, then maybe they wouldn't go kill a bunch of children. Oh, that is a thing one might say. Producer Nick.
Completely ignore the fact that the shooter himself said in his writings, I hate that I brought myself into my own delusions. I hate that I convinced myself to become transgender. Forget all that.
Of course. No, it's fine. Now, there was another excellently stupid take on this particular issue from a slightly older gal over on the left. Again, the media is trying very hard now to kind of push past this entire shooting story, not just because they really don't like the fact that the identity of the shooter, along with a recent trend of shootings, not 5-6 years ago, last year, and the year before, the present trend in this country of mental illness is tending more towards transgenderism than towards the mental illness that had previously gripped a hold of people in kind of the white supremacy, insane nutcase community on that front. And the media doesn't like it, not only because of this, but because on Blue Sky, the leftist version of X, and seeping onto X, and also, of course, very big on TikTok, are the most insane takes you have ever heard in your life. And they are being liked, upvoted, shared hundreds of thousands of times.
I don't talk much while I'm traveling about political stuff because that's not the focus. But at the moment, I want to talk with everyone about the situation.
Oh, thank goodness. I was excited for Jamie. I don't know, she looks more like a Barb, to tell me what it is that she thinks. Finally, I'm so excited. This so far, this reads like a Facebook post no one asked for.
And the Catholic school shooting. That poor girl who attended the school and went in there and shot up the school after transitioning and after attending that school, and we can only assume that that school, as a Catholic school, did not welcome her, did not make her feel seen, included, safe during her confusing years, during her transitional years, during her becoming who she needed to become. But the goal was to become happy when you transition. And so this is going to feed a lot of conversation about mental illness around trans people, and this is why people shouldn't encourage people to transition. And it's just so sad because it affects the LGBTQ plus community.
It's so sad because it's not sad because the children died. It's not sad because there are children and adults in the hospital. It's not sad because there's one in critical condition fighting for her life. That's not why it's sad. The reason it's sad is because, there's some hate towards the LGBTQ community. I will remind you that before he passed away, one of the most absolutely on point Norm Macdonald jokes that he delivered. This was in December of 2016. He said, quote, "What terrifies me is if ISIS were to detonate a nuclear device and kill 50 million Americans, imagine the backlash against peaceful Muslims." Again, it's because that's how the media treats it. Oh, well, we got to consider the Islamophobia here. Oh, man, we've really got to consider, and if a transgender person commits a crime, people are going to not like transgender people because, again, in the manifesto, it kind of shows the kind of effects of that lifestyle, that ideology, that gripping of the mental illness. And I do. I'm sorry. I agree with what Ben Dykes, who just threw a super chat in. Very, very kind of you. That in fact, this is grandstanding on the graves of children. It is. This is the actual grandstanding. When you're the mayor of Minneapolis, you're Jacob Fry, and you have gone on like 2 or 3 massive major campaign style events on every network TV. Not to say I stand with the Catholic community. Once he has said that everyone should stand with everyone, even Catholics. What a thing to say. Oh, I'm so glad that you could get around finally to saying, well, yeah, even the Catholics. You mean the victims of this shooting? Again, it is extremely gross. And of course, blaming the school and for not affirming the delusions of this individual, who he, in his own manifesto, said were delusions. And he couldn't change back from them because if he changed back from them, then that would tip off the police that maybe he was about to go commit the shooting. Insane. And by the way, that's not the only crazy. There is an individual named John Hone of Massachusetts that said he was looking forward to more shootings like this, more shootings at Christian schools and Catholic schools. Here you go.
And you know what? There's going to be a lot more of that coming up. Especially at these religious areas, hey, we've had enough of your kind coming after public schools, right? It's about time, churches and Catholic schools and religious schools, it's about time they get their turn. That's what I think. I'm just going to sit back and watch people do it. And I'm going to laugh. I'm laughing about yesterday. You guys want to laugh about us? We're going to laugh about you.
So people, found out who this dude was, started contacting his employer and saying, excuse me. So he did what and this is an honorary Karen. This is a Kevin, we'll call him. I don't know. I know a lot of nice people named Karen and Kevin, but the joke is there. He gets very mad. Why? Because people don't like what he had to say about this. So he records another video.
Listen, you dumb I have 80 accounts, okay? Yeah, it is. We are the modern ones. You're right. We're not putting up with any of your bullshit, right?
Sorry, I'm gonna. There's a lot of bleeps here because this individual has really nothing to say about himself that's useful. So, as a clear choice here, he says, "Yeah, we are the moderates. We are the modern whatever. This is the left. That's right. This is exactly who we are." It's not even saying the quiet part out loud anymore. It's just boldly screaming it at the top of your lungs.
That can come right on over. Yeah. Yeah. Come right on over. Go yourself, you.
I mean, hey, he said come right on over,
It is the most disheartening thing is you have the separation between the two points of view. You have people like him who are 100% radicalized, want the death of children because they believe that it's eye for an eye mentality. But in turn, you have people like Jacob Fry who deflect from the situation by focusing on guns as an issue, focusing on transgender acceptance as an issue, to deflect what the true issue is with the mental health crisis. Because if they were to accept the principles of mental health as an issue within the transgender community, they're so embedded in that identity politics that they know that they'll lose that whole base immediately.
Well, we saw this with Representative Tim McBride, who goes by Sarah, where he suggested that they needed to be kind to people. And immediately on Blue Sky, the only transgender member of Congress was shredded and said they were going to sell that he, you know, who pretends to be a she, was going to sell the rest of the trans community down the river.
That's the new.
That's how
buzzword.
quickly they're willing to be like, you know what?
Sell them out.
Noose. I mean, my goodness. All right. So moving from that point forward, I do want to get to a bit of mail time. You guys have sent in some excellent questions this week. We're going to dig into it. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Mail time. Mail time. Mail time.
On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Hello. Let's do just a smidgen of mail time here before we're done for the weekend. A lot of phenomenal questions sent in. So again, you know, you just send them over either via TonyKinnett.com, KINNETT.com. You throw a question in that way. You send it over in the Discord. Throw it wherever you can. We'll try to get through them, especially the really, really grumpy ones. Let's dig in right to the beginning. This question from Winter. Are you sad that Jasmine Crockett has lost her congressional seat? Well, we aren't going to know for a fact that she's out of it until she's out of it. I'm not going to count any chickens before they are spilled milk, to bring the metaphor. In this particular instance, I really am nervous about saying, haha, they're gone, LOL. Could she, in the new district to which her primary residence is listed, then run and win? Yeah, I mean, we have seen that happen before. A kind of voter's revenge. Do I think that's going to happen? Kind of in my heart of hearts? No. And LOL, she'll be like Stacey Abrams. I just hope that she's not made the president of Earth to simp after her. Maybe she'll be like Beto. She'll run around with him for a while, you know?
I mean, it's not like we're going to lose her. As she says herself, she's first and foremost an influencer.
So true. Deeply true. Deeply true. This next one from Delphix. Does Tony have a favorite Hoosier animal? I mean, I'm going to be very basic in how I say this. It is the cardinal. Now, it's our state bird. Obviously, there are a lot of states that do have the cardinal as their favorite bird. I just like them a lot. I think they're a really cool bird. Not really exciting, I know, but alas, that's it. So this next one from Mario Sleegers. Any suggestion on getting rid of our Newsom governor in California? Yes, I do in fact have a suggestion. You need to find a Republican who can run for office, who can win in the primary and win in the general election. There's this weird thing about West Coast Republicans. You get west of the Mississippi, and all of this, unless it's in Texas, all of the Republicans get really interesting. Some of the Republican primaries, and by the way, we're dealing with quite a bit of drama here in our own Indiana Republican Party. And as I am often dragged through the Ohio and Virginia Republican situations, not just because Rebecca Downs, our Ohio correspondent, and our excellent Virginia team keep me abreast of such things over at the Daily Signal. The West Coast has some interesting situations, and I will make a few of you unhappy when I say this. I'm sorry in advance. We may just have to agree to disagree. Sometimes you have candidates who are run like Carrie Lake, who are just cuckoo, just a little out there. And they may be really effective in the primary, and then once you get out in the general, they don't do as well. And the reason is because after Detroit, became a Democrat hellhole. There was a lot of migration out of the Rust Belt into the states in the Southwest, the Sun Belt. The Rust Belt migrated in a large part to the Sun Belt, which means that for California and New Mexico and Arizona, you do in fact need a kind of more classical, dare I even say a corporatist kind of Republican. Now, you don't have to go as far as like a Lisa Murkowski, but you do need a Republican who can espouse traditional values, but is willing to put some restraint on it. And you say, but I don't want that. That's not what the country needs. I agree with you. I would love traditional red-blooded Calvin Coolidges and Teddy Roosevelts and those great American heroes to break forward. But a Ron DeSantis isn't going to win in California. Would I want that to happen? Absolutely, dude. With all of my heart and then some. Now, we've interviewed Steve Hilton on the show. I think Steve Hilton would be my pick right now. But Republicans also do this really weird thing in primaries where they backstab each other. Democrats, as soon as the primary's over, everyone goes all in with the main candidate, and it is march lock, step, and barrel all the way forward until the Democrats usually end up pulling ahead to win the particular head seat that they're running for. Republicans, in this day and age, you get to the end of a primary, and what happens? This person is actually a secret leftist, and they're infiltrating, and blah, 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 blah. And then you end up getting the backstabber express, so that a bunch of people whose candidate lost out in the primary, well, they don't end up making it through to the general. And that's a major problem. Republicans are going to have to deal with that in a lot of states. I think California, it's find somebody who's mostly good that you're willing to take a bit of a loss on. Then you have a government under a California governor who's not awful. And then you follow that up with a more conservative candidate afterward. That's what Virginia is currently doing, by the way. And now, again, Glenn Youngkin's been an excellent Virginia governor. But he has been a little more relaxed on some things that Winsome Sears is a little bit more on the ball for, may we say. Maybe a little more to the right of, maybe more traditional on. So those things said, again, you may not be particularly thrilled. And I'm not trying to throw away any of our Western listeners at all in any way, shape, or form. That is just a problem that's regularly encountered out there. Whereas in some of the safer Southern and Midwestern states, our issue is with lethargy. We're really lazy here because we have super majorities and no one cares. And so you get a lot of sucky politicians that are in power. So that actually brings me to the next question. It's a really, really good question. And it's from Leem, L-E-E-M, and says, hey, I'm and he's in the Indianapolis area. He gives me a more precise location. I'm not going to give that here. Essentially on the home station that we syndicate out of down here at the bottom corner, this WYBC. That's the first station we're out of. That's why we say that at the beginning of the show. There is a host in the morning named Rob Kendall, excellent guy, who disagrees with me on the redistricting stuff right now. There's a lot of calls to do some redistricting, including in Indiana. And I'm told, I haven't listened to the segment yet, in all transparency, that he has disagreed with me, and I've disagreed with him on some stuff. And essentially the question is, what's your response to his disagreements? I may or may not disagree with other major right-leaning broadcasters all the time. But if you think that I'm going to take that as an opportunity to chuck him under the bus because he disagrees with me on redistricting, absolutely not. Love the guy, respect him a lot. He's said a lot of phenomenal things over the years. Just to make a very clear point of case here, just because he disagrees with me on redistricting doesn't mean that he's an idiot. He just disagrees with me. Yes.
How dare you have a respectful difference of opinion? You're supposed to call him names now.
Don't get me wrong. There's people on the right side of the broadcasting aisle who I do, in fact, despise deep down. I don't speak of them on the show if I can help it. But a lot of people who just disagree with me about some basic stuff. Oh, no, the horror. What are you going to do? I have a lot of them on the show, and we talk with them. And we'll air them anyway. Daniel DiMartino is a phenomenal mind on immigration and economics. He and I disagree on the solution for immigration. Oh no, what's going to happen? I'm going to convince him over time. As long as he doesn't suddenly call me a knuckle-dragging Neanderthal and a fascist, we have somewhere to go with that.
I think it'll completely astound the audience to hear that even on the TKC team, we have disagreements.
Oh, that's true. Producer Daniel, producer Nick, and I will occasionally argue over how gay producer Lou is, which, given that he just got married to a wonderful lady out in PA, is a little bit harder to argue these days, but we do have some pretty fierce arguments.
We hold strong.
That's right. Absolutely. mainly because he calls the bonus tonus portion of the show Bony Tony, which I'm sorry is just really gay. So I'm going to call him out for that right here, right now. And just like that, all of the calendar invites, just like that, all of the calendar invites for all of the calendar invites for next week's interviews just magically disappeared. All right, next question. And I'm very, very, very excited to get through some of these here. So this is from Lisa. She says, I have a question I haven't yet heard addressed. I support the National Guard in D.C. and the deportation of illegal immigrants. But as far as sending the National Guard to other places like Chicago or New York, I wonder about a different strategy. Let the crime get so bad that the people of that city and the state elect different leaders. Send the Guard to places where leaders welcome them, watch the improvements get made, and the criminals move out of those areas to sanctuary places. So then she says the crime will get worse, it'll look bad, people will vote differently and wake up. What do you think? And instead of sending the Guard where they're not welcome and stirring up ill will. Okay, here's my take on that. I do not believe that Trump is about to send in the National Guard to Chicago tomorrow. I don't. Now, if ICE is sent in and Trump sends in the National Guard to protect ICE, who's being assaulted, like in Los Angeles, I think that is long-term beneficial. I don't think Trump's going to, like tomorrow, he's going to send in the National Guard to Louisville. Now, Wes Moore did go on Will Cain and say that he was desirous now because he's been getting some pushback from the very last 3 or 4 moderates on the left, like the last 3 or 4. I think James Carville's one of them, although I don't have a source for that. That's just the language really matches up. So that would be my inner speculation on that one. Very transparent as always. So I think that with Kathy Hochul of New York begging judges to stop letting criminals back onto the streets, Newsom now saying he's beefing up law enforcement, they recognize that blue state governors that do nothing about the horrible crime situations in their states and in their big cities is going to get worse. Now, I've said this on the show before. I've been raked over the coals for it by some on the left and one guy on the right out of Kansas before, but I've never heard of him before, essentially saying, well, you know, you shouldn't order these red state, you shouldn't tell these red state governors to send in National Guardsmen to their big cities. Why? Why? The National Guard of that state is set to, by most state constitutions I've read, and the legal precedent behind them, which get kind of tricky in some states. Yeah, I mean, it's okay to send in the National Guard in your own state to restore order. I don't see why this weird pretending that we get to do, that one county in your state or 2 counties in your state get to ignore all laws because local government said they could. That's not how that works. And if you read your state's constitution, you will find most states do not wholly and sacrosanctly believe that Marion County in the center of Indiana can do whatever the bleep it wants and ignore the rest of the state. That's not a thing. Bleed over does matter in local and county governance. So did you have something to add there? We got to I don't want to keep everyone here forever tonight.
That plays into the stupid argument that Gavin Newsom and quite other Wes Moore and their ilk have made. Well, why aren't you sending it to Republican cities? In response, every Republican, please clean up every city.
I'm for it. I understand the concern, but there is an argument to be had in the Republican Party as to which rules you play by right now. Not legal rules, but like what the common cultural and societal norms and social standards one must have, mustn't one? Those kinds of things. This next one is from Timothy, and it's a great question. Why do mass shooters always seem to target innocent people and children? Because when they don't, they get shot before they're able to kill very many people. So many mass shooters you never hear about because they never make it past the armed citizen, off-duty, on-duty police officer, military individual, the bravery of those who rush would-be mass shooters. This happens quite frequently. And again, it's one of the reasons why I include individuals who attempt mass shootings in mass shooting statistics. And by the way, to push back on a narrative we also got asked about a couple of times, what about the suggestion that, well, it's actually white people responsible for all of this? According to the federal statistics, shootings that involve multiple deaths in this country, if you want to play the statistics game to throw white people, whatever that means, under the bus, well, according to the federal statistics, shootings in which more than one person dies, that demographic would be young black men, just according to the statistics. So I would recommend not playing dangerous games when you don't want the statistical evidence not to come back and crack you in the teeth. So let's see. I want to move through. There was another. This is from Pastor Poe. Exile is a solution. What if exile for crimes of anti-patriotism and treason, things like flag burning, terrorist sympathizers, swamp politicians, guilty DC insiders, instead of prison, more logical and economical punishment? I don't like exile as a solution as much, because exile is stripping someone's federal citizenship away gets really, really tricky and really, really political really quickly. I am more for the corporal punishment side of things. For example, I don't think the punishment for drunk driving should be jail time. I think the punishment for drunk driving should be 10 lashes. According to all data that we have from history, that seems to sink in more. Now, as for political crimes, I'm not going to weigh in on what I think the crimes for political crime, like the levying of judgment for political crimes should be. You get into sketchy territory really quickly. I don't think that the institutions of the United States are strong enough to handle the scrutiny that would come with judging political crimes. Even, again, blatant mortgage fraud with Lisa Cook right now. I mean, people are dragging Trump through the grave saying, well, hey, you are being really political about this. When in reality, I wouldn't argue that it's as political as much as it's really, really blatant mortgage fraud, and that benefits Trump politically at the moment. There's an element of it. So making just only like kind of political crimes on that kind of side of things, I'm a little smidge nervous about. All right. Moving forward here. Terry Miller asks, do you think that the Court of Appeals decision today is why Jerome Powell is holding off lowering rates? No, I don't think so. I think Jerome Powell is holding off lowering rates because it kind of gives him a little bit of a moral standing for it. I think he's just been told by, again, bitter, old, overly overeducated, white, college liberal women in his direct messages on social media that he's a really stunning and brave person for standing up to Trump. That's why I think he's doing it, according to the evidence here. And then this is from Chris Streeter earlier on in the show. He said, very much enjoying the show. I'm 63 and appreciate the intelligence of the show. Great job, Tonus. Thank you. Can you do a Christopher Walken or a Matthew McConaughey, maybe a Joe Pesci, explore the space? If you know, you know. I get a couple of annoyed comments every once in a while that ask why we do so many impressions, or why I try to do so many impressions on the show. To be quite frank with you, I understand your frustration. When I was a teacher, I did two things a lot. Number one, I did a lot of impressions because I had junior hires and it would wake them up from stuff and it was engaging. And number two, well, also I watched a lot of Whose Line Is It Anyway? The good one, not the current one. When I was a kid, I just really enjoyed Ryan Stiles and Wayne Brady and Colin Mockery and, you know, whoever was the rotational with Drew Carey. That's where a lot of that comes from. And then also a lot of analogies. I don't know. Analogies just kind of come naturally to me. Those two things kind of flow together. The reason I do them on the show is because I'm transparent. I try to be really transparent with you guys. You are getting just me. The notes, what to talk about today. We have no notes that say, Tony, do this impression. No. And so probably gives my editor-in-chief, Kate, a lot of heartburn at times. But for those who are still with us here at the end of the show, Christopher Walken, it's a harder one to do because it has to get really, really nasally. Voices that are more in the throat are easier to try, but voices that are that are more nasal, like Christopher Walken, you gotta know that you're standing out from the crowd. You have to really commit to it. And if it goes well, you'll hear the voice become bolder. If the voice starts out strong, then I'll really lean into it and it can go better. You go, Christopher Walken, I'm producer Bruce Dickinson. I mean, you just kind of lean into it. Yeah. Matthew McConaughey is a little bit tougher. I haven't really tried out his voice a lot. Oh, well, Shay. It's got the whistle, but it's a more pronounced, like there's a hard S at the front of the whistle. It's also kind of right here in the front too. I'm not really brave enough to get in there, at least for now. That was the voice of McQueen, yeah? Matthew McConaughey was?
Yeah. And sometimes it's really reliant on the teeth structure.
It is. And I've got a little snaggle tooth right here that makes that hard S really hard to push through.
Can't push the air out.
Yeah, a little difficult. Yeah, when I do that whistle, it's with like the tongue behind the top two front teeth. So, Joe Pesci, I feel like I probably could. I'm thinking of I don't like the way that kid looked at me. I mean, it just kind of goes up. I don't know if I could really lean into it. I don't know if I'm brave enough to lean into it on the air. There, here. I tried it. I didn't like it. I'm stopping. I'm thinking like, oh, funny like a clown. I'd have to really lean into it, make it more gravelly. And then I'd probably be more interested in trying Marv as opposed to Harry.
Hit him with an inconceivable.
Inconceivable. I mean, it's off. It's not quite there. So I don't know. Voices are like that. Some of them are really good. Like Patrick Warburton is something that I've tried for long. Oh, hey, Peter. My voice is a little dry at the end of the show for that one. I don't know. For those who hate the voices, some of them you bounce into. Like Bill Clinton, I found out just accidentally that I could kind of sound like Bill Clinton when he was running for election the first time. I did not have, relations with that woman. And by her, I mean Hillary. Some of them are okay. We tried George Bush in Washington, D.C., and people were mad. That's how bad it was. So, I don't know. Some of them work. My Trump has good days and really bad days. The Bernie Sanders is probably the best one. Hillary Clinton's a little overly stylized.
It's the most consistent, not necessarily the best.
That's fair. My best is Gopher from Winnie the Pooh. Summer squash and honey. So now that we've lost a good 200 people on the live stream because I started doing voices, and yeah, Dennis Rollin is correct. Practice. So I used to do voice acting, just as a way to pick up a couple extra bucks in and after college. There's a thing to practicing it. I was once able to do a little bit of Morgan Freeman, but it's you really have to commit. You have to commit to Morgan Freeman, especially as a white dude. So I love the boo as well. I appreciate that. No one else does this for us. That's very, very kind. I very much appreciate that. There was one other question that came from, I believe, Applebee's. Said J plus 4, $100,000 on the line. What are you doing? I have no idea what the heck that reference means. I'm guessing it's a sports betting reference. And if that's the case, I make it a habit never, ever, ever to gamble if I can help it. It's just not for me. But I also hate spending money on like going to concerts and things. I like spending money on things that are tangible that aren't gone as soon as I have them. I spent $900 on an upgrade on a flight on my way over to Israel for the worst service I've ever had in my entire life. And I hated it because after 12 hours, the money was gone. So I hate that. So
it's
Jack plus
blackjack.
4. Jack plus 4 in blackjack. $100,000 on the line and it's a 14. What do I do? In blackjack, $100,000 on the line. Oh, I think you hit. I'm just saying, if I had to bet on a 14, I would do it. Jack is Jack 14 in blackjack? Jack plus 4? It'd be 10, right? Or do they treat the face cards as different?
Yeah,
I haven't played a lot of blackjack.
So anything below 18, you're supposed to hit unless you split with, but you don't split with Jack. No. There's a table for it. Reference the table.
Yeah. Well, sorry to disappoint you on my expertise, over.
You always play Baccarat anyways.
Over there. Yeah, good to know. All right, those things said, I hope you guys have a truly, yeah, it's 14. Okay, good. I was like, I'm not this stupid. I mean, I might be. Who knows? So I will address one more thing, just for kicks and giggles. There were a lot of criticisms that I pronounced Cyrillic, the term for the phonetic, like the alphabet, the Cyrillic alphabet, that makes up Russian and some other obscure languages, that I had pronounced it in my anger when covering the news as Cyrillic. And
Actually, you pronounced it that way again in Top News in 10.
And then, yeah, I did turn around and pronounce it again that way in Top News in 10. Yeah, that in Top News in 10, it was intentional. I'm sorry, I was mad. So to be very clear, yes, I am very well aware that Saint Cyril is the one attributed from the Eastern Orthodox Church with giving the letter style system as an opposition to the Latin text because he despised of all things Roman numerals, to the people of the Kiev Rus. Sometimes you just mispronounce things very, very angrily. Here's a free thing to hit me with because it's 8:31 and I don't care. It's just for fun. I learned the word cacophony by reading it instead of saying it. And so every time I try to say the word cacophony, I have to, on the internal recesses of my mind, reaffirm, hey, don't say cacophony. Don't say that. It's cacophony.
You've been doing it a lot lately. Nguyen,
yeah. I'm. There are some of these things, I don't know. I see that I'm supposed to pronounce a name in a certain way. I just don't care. And I don't have a standard for it. I don't. Because I'll also be really kind to some pronunciations. I'll try. But the more that I do this and the more that there's news to just get through, I don't care.
I'm guilty of it as well. Epitome.
Someone gave me a who versus whom, which I'm usually really good on. But they gave me a who versus whom in the comments. Guys, I'm a millennial who grew up half off of the internet and half on the internet. If it's an evening where I don't say and like 50, 60 times, that's a win. I mean, how I'm able to provide references that both fit our boomer, our Generation X, our Generation IY, the upper half of the millennials, the last of the millennials, the Generation Z, and then I just give up on the Generation Alpha references. You're never going to hear me say anything about Skibbity or Riz. That's not happening. It hurts me. Good. Yeah. That we are doing as well as we are is a blessing from God on high. So I appreciate those sticking around here. We still have 1,400 people with us on the on the live stream. You poor people. I really appreciate you. So, again, you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I hope that the questions and the emails that we're very likely to get from this are just incredible. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be back on Tuesday. Taking Labor Day off. I'm going to rest for once. So that pretty much ensures that we're going to be in war about Monday at 2 a.m, because of course. Yeah, it has happened before. So this is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.